In this bulletin, Central Division lockdown now in effect. McCoy COVID-19 case worries authorities. And essential services to operate. In Repinaka, Fiji, the Ministry of Health has announced containment zones for Lami, Suva and Osori, which will be in effect for the next 13 days. Permanent Secretary for Health Dr. James Fong says from 4 a.m. today, those living in the containment zones will not be allowed in or out. Dr. Fong says this is being done to ensure people don't move unnecessarily. Kritika Kumar reports.
The 3 new containment zones stretch from Wainandoi to Longani village in Tailevu.
It begins from Wainandoi to Tamavoiwai, and that will be the Lami area that we'll rename. Then from Tamavoiwai to 8 Miles Bridge, which will be what we call the Suva Containment Zone, and 8 Miles Bridge to Longani Village on the King's Road, which is what we're going to call the Nosori Containment Zone.
The Permanent Secretary says anyone who is found loitering in public in any of the containment zones will be arrested by police and people will only be allowed for essential purposes.
In this instance, this lockdown will be mandated. You've asked me a few times whether we can mandate this and mandate that. This one definitely mandate.
Nandi and Lautoka will also be divided into 2 zones. The Nandi zone begins from Momi Junction to Lomolomo Police Post and the Lautoka zone will be from Lomolomo Police Post to Nadilau. There will be limited movement for necessary purposes. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
A COVID-19 case from McCoy in Sinu is a cause for concern for the Health Ministry. The woman is one of 4 new cases confirmed for Fiji, but authorities are unsure how she was infected. 2 other cases were recorded in Nandi, 1 in Lautoka. Lina Ruiz reports.
The Ministry of Health is conducting contact tracing to determine who the woman from McCoy may have been in contact with before she was infected.
She has been placed in quarantine, but prudence requires us to treat this case as a possible community transmission. And as our investigation goes forward, we may find the source point, and this may or may not represent a new cluster.
The remaining 3 cases were all at the funeral in Tavukumbu, which authorities say is a super spreader. The Ministry of Health is tracking the movements and contacts of the new cases 5 days before they went into quarantine.
3 of the cases involved persons who attended the funeral that we have identified as a super spreader event, including a husband and a wife who circulated through the community.
The ministry will now work within the containment areas to continue contact tracing to contain the spread of the virus.
We want you to keep still so we can do our contact tracing and the interventions in the community. The other reason is because if there are cases out there that we don't know about and we don't find, we know that when people move, the virus moves. So if everyone just keeps still for a period of time, we can actually stop the virus in its tracks.
There are now 10 locally transmitted cases in Fiji. Lina Rees, FBC News.
All non-essential businesses in the Central Division Containment Zone will be closed for 14 days. Supermarkets, shops selling food and other items will remain open, so people can buy essential items within their respective containment zones. Those who can't attend to work can receive a one-off relief payment from the Fiji National Provident Fund. Apenisa Wangai Randobo reports.
Fijians have been urged to refrain from bulk and panic buying.
Please do not run up to the supermarkets and start bulk buying things this afternoon or this evening. Doing so will only crowd those stores and will put every shopper at risk. So what we're getting at is that we are going to allow some degree of movement during that lockdown phase, just so that you can access some of your essentials.
Dr. Fong says there will be limited banking services as well as available FNPF and FRCS services.
The list will include electricity services, emergency services, fire services, health and hospital services, lighthouse services, meteorological services, mine pumping, private security services and roading services. If your business is not in this list, close it down.
Civil servants in confinement areas can work from home given they make arrangements with their respective permanent secretaries. The government will also re-implement the Ministry of Agriculture Marketing Authority arrangement to get food and fresh produce into containment zones. Apinisong Grandobu, FBC News.
The Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission is working with authorities to ensure there are reasonable expectations during the times of restricted movement. Director Ashwin Raj says authorities must ensure that COVID-19 related restrictions do not have a disproportionate and discriminatory effect on the public. Raj says there must be reasonable expectations for food, healthcare, transportation during medical emergencies, shelter particularly in the context of domestic violence and other basic necessities. He says the Commission is working closely with the Fiji police force in ensuring households and individuals have access to basic food and other essential items during lockdowns and other COVID-19 related restrictions. Raj stresses that all public health advice must be taken seriously and adhered to.
Extremely difficult times. Human rights is increasingly under strain. And so we want to make sure that, all of these restrictions are, put in their proper context. And where reasonable exceptions need to be made, they should be made. But at the same time, if the public acts in an irresponsible manner, then it sets a very, very dangerous precedent for everybody else.
A group of youth in Wainitarowau settlement in Cunningham are making the most of the expanded and screening zone. Since entry and exit is forbidden, the youth have been selling cassava to homes inside the lockdown. Apeniso Wangerundobo reports it's a win-win, with families having a source of food and the farmers earning an income.
Botui Kolindisi says they farm for their family, but those in the containment area have asked for support.
This is the first time we're selling cassava. We usually just farm for our family.
The group attends the same church with those in the containment area, and this was also a way of helping out.
Church members are inside the containment area, so they pay us and the money goes back to our families.
The group says while they sort out masks, they are trying to stay out of the area as much as possible.
We are just going with what we have right now. We'll try to get some proper masks, but scarf and clothes are all we can go with for now.
Military personnel and health official continued screening the whole of Cunningham today. The portion of Wainitarowau area where 3 local cases of COVID-19 were tested remains on lockdown for at least the next 11 days. Apenisong Grandobu, FBC News.
The volume of agro exports last year increased significantly as there was more cargo space available on outbound flights. Permanent Secretary Ritesh Das says total volume went up to 16.3%, or more than 1,800 tons when compared to 2019. Fiji Airways had earlier highlighted that there are up to 10 freight flights a week. Kritika Kumar reports.
According to the ministry, increasing the volume of export has led to a decrease in the cost of exporting fresh produce.
All of a sudden, all the space available on the planes for cargo, we have been able to achieve, a growth in our exports, both in value and volume, which is a positive trend.
The ministry has achieved a growth in the value and the volume of the export.
And if we continue on this trajectory, we should be able to see double-digit growth in our exports, both volume and value, this year and in subsequent years.
Agriculture Minister Dr. Mahendra Reddy says the exports have not been impacted by the pandemic.
We are very pleased with the support from police and security forces with regard to transfer of produce and it been getting loaded and for export purpose. So at the moment, export is not affected.
The ministry has also confirmed that the crop and livestock export has increased over the last 7 years. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
Up ahead, Fiji Rugby focuses on development plans for women, and Cricket Fiji rely on local tournaments. Welcome back. Fiji Rugby Union will see a big growth in women's rugby in the next few years. Following rumors that some women players had been switching to rugby league, Fiji Rugby Chief Executive says it is not a loss for the union. He says the priority is always the people who stay loyal to the sport.
Women's game in rugby will be huge in the next few years. We have the World Cup in 2021, 2022,
We have the Global Women's Competition in 2023. That competition means 7 test matches for the Fijiana every year.
Local warm-up games are the only option for the national cricket team as they prepare for the East Asia Pacific qualifiers in Japan in August. Due to the pandemic, the team will not be able to travel abroad to train. They will only have to rely on Cricket Fiji weekly competitions. Venina Rakautonga reports.
There is no other choice for the national cricket team than to train locally.
We'll have to invite local team which play in Suba and Nandi so that they can have a game with this squad that we have been to.
Cricket Fiji Acting Chief Executive Sitiveni Rokoro says they will invest a lot in this young team.
Youth, talented and skillful athletes that's been picked for this squad.
National coach Shoeli Mateawa says local warm-up games also has its advantages.
So this is one way as well to get our cricketers involved during the Cricket Cup Association Challenge.
30 cricketers have been chosen to be part of the extended squad. Eliminations will be in July. Venina Rakautonga, FBC Sports.
Fiji-born Sevu Reece was in brilliant form, scoring a try for the Crusaders as they defeated the Blues 29-6 in the Super Rugby Aotearoa in Christchurch. The hosts got on the try column through Will Jordan, Reece and Cody Taylor, while the Blues notched up just the 2 penalties from Ontario Black's boot. The Super Rugby Aotearoa final has been confirmed, with the Crusaders to host the Chiefs in 2 weeks. Here are the highlights.
Again, here's Jordan. Will Jordan. Almost through. He is through. Will Jordan. Drummond waits again. Now he swings it wide. Wide across it goes for Sevu Reece. And Sevu Reece scores. Then looking good in formation here. Keep an eye on Cody Taylor. Edging their way up. Blues desperately trying to kick them out. Taylor's still got it. They get to the line, Taylor. Away for Jordan. Pushed through by Havili. Here come the sprinters.
Cloudy periods with some showers and isolated thunderstorms over the eastern parts and the interior of the larger islands. Elsewhere, find apart from brief showers and isolated thunderstorms over Lau and Lomaiviti Group. And expect moderate easterly winds, fresh at times, moderate to rough seas. That's FBC Morning News. Join us at 7 p.m. for our major bulletin. For news you can trust, get the facts from FBC's TV, radio and digital news at fbcnews.com.fj. Take care and good morning.